Hello everyone and welcome to spooky season and welcome to the first vlog. This time of year I just like to document what I do on a day-to-day basis. I'll probably still have book reviews and movie reviews in separate videos, but this is just about what I do in a more casual way. I usually like celebrating the autumnal/spooky season in September. Like on the 1st of September, I will be full autumn mode. However, this year was a little bit different because I had a trip to Italy in early September and that felt to me very summery. So I didn't get fully in the mood until after I was back. There was one specific thing that I did in Italy that very much put me in the mood for this season, and that was visiting the Egyptian Museum in the city of Turin. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit hesitant about it because I always feel conflicted about the strong imperialist current underneath these types of museum, but I was pleasantly surprised because once I learned a little bit about the history of the museum, the impression I got is that they really made an effort to collaborate with the Egyptian government to restore and exhibit these pieces. So that made me feel a little bit better. So the way the museum is laid out is by chronological order, explaining how Egyptian culture changed from prehistoric times to post-Christianism, and obviously a huge part of Egyptian culture was burial rites. So I was absolutely shocked when I walked into the exhibition and one of the first things I saw was a mummy, a real life full-on mummy. Obviously this mummy was from a very early prehistoric period, so it's not like the typical Egyptian mummy you imagine in the sarcophagus. It was basically a person just lying down in the fetal position with a few objects around it. I didn't take any photos or videos of the actual mummies themselves because I felt a bit conflicted about putting like actual human remains on the video, but I will just add some footage of other things that I found interesting from the museum. I'm not gonna lie, the first reaction I had to seeing this mummy was plain morbid curiosity, mostly because I didn't expect it, and secondly, it's the kind of thing that I've always been very interested in. However, once I walked through the museum and I started to learn about how their burial rites changed through time and why and how they tied in with the beliefs. For example, I learned that eyes they painted on the sarcophagus were aligned with where the eyes of the person would be inside because they were lying down on their side, and they painted the eyes there so the dead person could see outside and be able to appreciate everything that was buried with them in the graves and appreciate the things that they would be able to take with them to the afterlife. And I think the reason this really put me in the mood for the season is that specifically for me as a Mexican person, this season is not only about the fun, spooky, scary things, but with the Day of the Dead coming right after Halloween, it's also a time to reflect about death as a part of life and something that's essentially gonna happen to all of us. So I guess in general, it was a very interesting experience that throughout the maybe 3 hours I spent in the museum, I went from seeing the mummy as this iconic monster, which of course they can still be in the right context, and I started seeing the mummy as a celebration of our ever-changing beliefs about life after death, and also the actions we as humans take to honor the souls and bodies of our beloved departed. And that's definitely something I'd like to take with me throughout the season. And if you're too disappointed that I didn't put any images of the human mummies, I thought that an acceptable alternative was to show you these super cute photo of dog and cat mummies, because obviously sometimes animals can be almost as important as other humans to people, and we want to remember them as well. And this is from someone who has made an Day of the Dead altar for their cat. And while we're talking about spooky stuff, I also want to show you this edition of the Goosebumps Curse of the Mummy book that I found in the museum's bookshop. So, of course, as serious as I am taking this topic, there is always an opportunity to find lightheartedness and fun in the morbid. So this is what the booktube corner is looking like. It's very empty, as you can see. Ignore my collection of tequilas. And in this shelf, I've set it so that it's the only one where hardbacks fit. and I don't have many because, as you know, I hate hardbacks. So these are the ones I have right now, and this is including the 2 editions I've gotten in my Evernight boxes. The first one is Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling. I'm a big fan of The Luminous Dead, and I've heard not so great things about her other 2 books, but we'll see. And then this one, which I'm hoping to read maybe in November, which is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This cover is awesome, although I do love the paperback covers, but I love the sprayed edges on this one. And I guess the other notable book here is my most recent purchase, which is a non-fiction, Feeding the Monster, Why Horror Has a Hold on Us by Anna Bogotskaya. I went to an event with her during the Edinburgh Book Festival where she talked about the book. It's basically the cultural impact that horror cinema of the last 20 years, I think, and it has a huge watch list at the end, so I'm hoping to do a little bit of reading and horror movie watching. This just seems like a really good resource for every horror lover. I've also separated this pile of non-fiction books that they are all either spooky or morbid in nature. Some of it is about paranormal research or paranormal events. Some of them are more kind of like medical, but more focused on the exploration of either death or the decay of the body or disease. And some of them are more about folklore, but I thought it would be maybe better to do a separate video with this since I have some ebooks as well, and also I haven't yet decided where I'm going to put them. I've just found this one as well, and I'm sure there's more in the piles of books that are all over, so yeah, I think it's better I talk about those separately. We've hit the first hurdle because I actually found 3 more hardbacks. This one is non-fiction, so I can put it in the non-fiction section, and I think then I'll do the same with this one. So now I've made space for either this one or this one. So the Sarah Grant book fits, even though it's the thicker of the 2. And then I'm just going to commit bookshelves in and just add this horizontally on top of the rest, and yeah, that's gonna have to do it. Okay, as you can see, I had to make some changes, but I stopped updating because documenting each change would have been crazy. Anyways, this is the final set of the shelf, but I'm left with a little leftover stack, which I think is fine. So these shelves, it just so happens that they're the perfect size for the UK paperback. So I have more horror books, but they're a different size, so I left them out for now. So in these first 2 shelves, I've organized all my horror novel length books, and also these are like double stacked, so I can't move them because they're in there tight, but there's books behind, so there's like 2 rows, which is not ideal, but it'll work for now. And then in the final bottom shelf, I have all the same size paperback novels that are not horror, so sci-fi, crime, thriller, and general like literary fictions in there. And then in the end, because I had some extra space, I added my Red Eye YA horror books, just because the space was perfect. I guess it's just the first shelf that's super tight. Like, this is not so bad. You see, I can still pull them out. This one's just, I don't know, a bit difficult. Also, I've organized them alphabetically because that's my favorite way to do it. However, there's 0 guarantee that they're gonna stay like that for any amount of time. So yeah, this is what we're working with so far, and now we just have to tackle how to organize the rest of my shelves, and I still have ridiculous amounts of piled up books. So yeah, wish me luck. I don't know how the rest of you do this, but I'm so tired. And there's still so much to go. But for now, I'm going to take a cake break. I don't know if you agree, but I think there is nothing that a piece of cake can't fix or at least make better, especially paired with some coffee in a Halloween mug. This is from Marks and Spencer's, by the way, from last year or maybe 2 years ago. Okay, so back to business. The plan is to organize the remaining books into piles. That sounds kind of weird, but the thing is, I'm not quite sure how they're gonna fit in the shelves. So I just want to get an idea of the space they occupy in terms of their category. So for example, I have a pile, as you've seen with my spooky nonfiction. Then I also have a pile of short story collections. So I guess what I'll do now is sort the rest of my horror novels. Then I have some Goosebumps books and things like that. Not that many though, so we'll see. But I also have vintage paperbacks and general nonfiction that's not spooky at all. I think those are all the classifications I have. So I'm going to try to get that organized. And then, depending on how I'm feeling, actually making them look good on the shelves will be a task for another day, because, you know, I have other stuff to do. So yeah, I'm just gonna get started and see what happens. I think we may be in trouble because, this makes no sense to you, but trust me, I understand the organization here. Yeah, I don't think once they go the right way around that they're gonna fit, because I still have like 3 huge piles here. This is a repeat book. I know people don't really like Tin Kunz, but if someone wants it, from the UK, I'll happily mail these to you. If not, it'll go on a little free library. So yeah, I don't think I have the mental capacity to figure this out today. So I'm just gonna leave it for now, and whenever I figure out how to organize these, I'll just show you. So I finished watching this documentary, The Devil on Trial. It was very much a Netflix documentary, which the way I see it is more for entertainment than actual information purposes, which is fine. To be completely honest, these types of documentary, like supernatural possession documentaries, are really my guilty pleasure, because I just don't believe that there is any way to do them right. And essentially most of the time, I'm just concerned about people being unwell physically and or mentally, and then having to watch them not get the proper attention. I am also hesitant to speak very badly about them, even if I don't like them, because I know that there is a lot of people that really believe in these, and I just don't want to be disrespectful to the subject of the documentary, because it's just really hard to gauge the extent to which they do believe in these and are putting out their testimony and don't really believe in it and just want to make money. It's hard to tell their intentions just from watching it. So I'd rather not say anything, except I just love watching them because, as you know, personal accounts of the paranormal are my favorite type of entertainment, if that makes sense. So to sum up what this is about, in case you are curious, this presents the case of a boy who was supposedly possessed to the extent that the church approved an exorcism. But they called it a minor exorcism. And while this is taking place, the demon ends up moving to a different person that later on goes on to commit a crime. So the documentary presents the types of evidence that this person's lawyer presented in court, and they were trying to make the case that this person should not be found guilty because they were possessed. So that's something that has actually been successful in England, but it had never happened in the US, and I don't think to this day it has happened. And of course, as always with these high profile cases, Ed and Lorraine Warren were involved, which always drives me insane because I do not have the best opinion of them, but I appreciated that actually the documentary provided a somewhat balanced view because there were 3 brothers in the family, and I think 2 of the brothers do believe that what happened was supernatural, and one of the brothers does not believe that it was anything supernatural. He believes there were personal circumstances that made it look that way, and he also believes that Ed and Lorraine Warren took advantage of the family for their financial gain, which sounds very familiar to what other people have said. In general, it was fine. It was 1 hour and a half of just being entertained while I ate dinner and did some other stuff. It's not something that I highly recommend, to be honest. Now, before I go to sleep, I look so tired, by the way. I think I really need to go to sleep. But I have some homework because I recently started a new horror short story writing course, and I have a bit of assigned reading, only 1 short story every 2 weeks, which is not bad at all, and I do enjoy short stories, so it's not a problem for me. And the one I have to read is Oh Whistle and I'll Come to You My Lad, a classic ghost story by M.R. James. I have read this story before, but obviously I want to read it a bit more from like a writer's perspective. And also I have this newish book, The Penguin Book of Ghost Stories, and this one includes a lot of background information on the authors and a bunch of like footnotes or endnotes that explain things about the story. So I think a reread would be good, and probably tomorrow I'll check back in and tell you what I thought about it. Good morning. I'm in really good mood today, even though I still have piles of books everywhere and it's a bit of a mess in here. But now that I'm back in Edinburgh, things are definitely starting to feel super autumnal, and that just makes me so happy. It's actually kind of foggy and rainy outside, and I guess that could sound miserable, but if you've been looking forward to the autumn season, as I'm sure you all have, then that's good news. I did my nails this morning. I didn't go with the Halloween yet because there's like a gel kit I want to try, so I just did these deep dark forest green color, which I think is very seasonally appropriate. I guess it could also be a little bit Christmassy, but the way I imagined it was just like a pine forest. I don't know, I was just in the mood for a deep color. And this afternoon I'm off to the cinema. Going to the cinema is one of my favorite autumn winter activities. I know you might think that this is a standard all year round activity, and you're partially right, but I'm very lucky to have a local independent cinema that is not just like a normal movie going experience. It's this beautiful place that truly provides a great atmosphere. As you go in from one side, there's this cafe slash bar area. It's kind of old fashioned because the decor is kind of like a 1920s art deco style. There's something so wholesome about it, and it's just a great place to sit and read a book before your movie, have a glass of wine, have a cup of coffee. Sometimes I go to write there. It's not uncommon for me to run into local friends who also enjoy going to the movies, so it's just a great community place. I've been watching some great movies there, and I've been debating whether to do movie reviews in the vlogs as I go or have a dedicated video for movies later on. But last time I went there, which was before my holiday, I watched Red Rooms, which had a limited release in the UK, so I was super happy that I had a chance to see that. And tonight I'm going for The Substance, which I'm also really excited for because I've heard great things about it. So I'm just gonna head there now and I'll talk to you soon. Actually, before I go, I remembered I promised to update you on the short story I read for my writing class, which was such a long name, I can't say it from the top of my head. It's Oh Whistle and I'll Come to You My Lad by M.R. James. And as I said, this book provides some extra context on each of the stories, and what I learned about this one and M.R. James in general is that he used to write his ghost stories and then he would read them aloud during his university's Christmas party. He was a scholar at Cambridge University and he was quite a respected scholar, so it's interesting interesting that he actually is now known for his ghost stories. Anyways, I thought this tidbit of information was really interesting because as you read the story, and that's what I love about the short story, is that it really gives you that feeling that someone is telling the story to you. He actually addresses the reader directly a couple of times. And by now you're probably tired of hearing me say how much I love oral storytelling tradition when it comes to horror. I literally believe it's one of the main sources of my love for horror, and I think it's the most effective type of horror because when it's a person, a seemingly normal person, telling a story to you about something that happened to them or something that happened to someone they know, it just makes you feel like it could happen to you too. And for me, that's so scary. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, whether you believe in ghosts or not, whenever someone tells you a personal experience of them or something that sounds like a personal experience, we tend to empathize and put ourselves in that situation, and therefore we are more likely to believe that it could be us in that situation. So obviously, even though this story, which was originally written or told in 1903, is quite outdated in terms of it being very slow paced, the horror very subtle, nothing is really much explained, it had for me a timeless vibe, and I guess that's why it's been so famous for so many years, and in my opinion it's definitely worth a read still. If you've read this story, let me know if you like it, and if you do, why do you like it even though it's so old? I'd love to know. But other than that, I better go catch my movie. So in the end, I did decide to do a separate video with the movies, the horror movies that I ended up watching during the autumn season. But I just wanted to quickly come in and say that I was so impressed by the substance. And by so impressed, I mean it may be my favorite movie that I've watched this year so far. And actually maybe my favorite horror movie that I've watched in a long time, maybe for the past 3 years. Don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but my first impression of that movie was so strong. I haven't stopped thinking about it in 2 days, and I'm kind of itching to watch it again, although I don't know if I can stomach it because it's very intense. But I don't want to say much else because I want to talk about it in more detail during my movie wrap-up that I eventually film. So books-wise, I am still working on I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, which was my current read that I started early in September. I've been working on this book for so long, but I think for me, Stephen Graham Jones books are just slow to read, and also I had a holiday in the middle, so I don't know, I'm just still working on it. So I won't count that for Halloween-a-thon. What I will count is the new audiobook that I started, which is a YA thriller called The Last Girl by Goldie Moldavsky. And I've only just started it, but I'm enjoying it. It's definitely very YA. It's been a while since I read a YA book or YA thriller, so it's definitely super teenagery, but not in a bad way. I think it's just kind of cute and fun. And this is about a teenage girl who, at the beginning of the book, we find out suffered from like an attack at her home. There were 2 men that broke into her home, and we don't know many details, but obviously it was a very traumatic experience for her. So she and her mother moved to a different city, and she gets enrolled into a private high school, and she's struggling to make friends because she doesn't really relate to these richer kids, plus the trauma of what happened to her. She's just having a hard time. However, she gets convinced to attend a party in like an old abandoned house, and at some point during the party someone has the idea to do a seance. And while they're doing these seance, something really scary happens that in the end turns out to be a prank. So our main character girl is super fascinated by this concept because she actually loves horror movies. So she's super intrigued about this group of students that could potentially be playing spooky pranks on people. So I guess I should say most of the kids at the party don't realize it's a prank. They think that they actually saw a ghost or an apparition, but she noticed someone playing scary sounds on like a recorder or their phone, I don't know. So she knows it was a prank. So at this point in the book, which is only like 15%, she's trying to figure out who in the school is playing these pranks because she kind of like wants to be a part of the group. So this is just the setup, and obviously being a thriller, I think things get actually a bit serious and dangerous with these pranks. But I don't know, I think it's just like a cute YA story and obviously very seasonally appropriate with the whole trying to scare your friends kind of thing. So I'll keep you updated on that when I read more, but I just wanted to show you a couple fun things I picked up from Tesco while I was doing my normal food shop. The first one is that I found these super cute spider string lights, and they have purple LEDs. And a lot of the decoration I have going on here is kind of botanical with a lot of like plant prints, and I've started accumulating a couple insect decorations, so I thought these would go well with my decoration, not only for Halloween but also all year round. I'm not a huge lover of Halloween candy, which is actually good for me because here in the UK there's not that much going on really. But the one type of candy that I really love are gummies. Gummies of all kinds. So I was really excited when I came across these pack of Haribo Monsters Zing. So these ones have little bats, little Frankensteins, and little vampire fangs. And they're supposed to be blackcurrant, apple, and blood orange. And I assume they're gonna be sour, unless that's like a sugar covering, I don't know. And the other ones I found are these sour skeletons. So these are definitely gonna be sour. But they're so cute. And these ones are cherry and blackcurrant, lemon and lime, and blood orange and pineapple. So right now it's the morning, so it's a bit too early to be eating gummies, but I'll open them later and let you know if they're any good. Okay, so now that I've been watching some movies and reading some books, it's time to start playing the board game. So first let me explain to you how we're going to play. So I've divided the board game so that there is certain amount of squares for each of the locations. So for example, Kitty's Monster Island is until number 12. So because I want to mood read and mood watch and basically mood everything, what I thought I would do is that I would just go about my life, just doing the things I want to do and get some inspiration from the prompts, but not be like super relying on them. So essentially every time I read a book, I will roll the dice and then advance the number of squares that I roll. However, I decided that if that book matches a prompt or recommendation from anyone involved in this event, I would add +1 to that roll. And then if it matches a prompt of recommendation specifically for Kitty or whichever section I'm on at the moment, then I will add +2. I hope that makes sense, and if it doesn't make sense, then you'll probably understand as we play. Before we get rolling and playing though, I need to finish constructing my dice, so I will do that and then I'll come back and start rolling. Okay, so I finished this. I think I might need to reinforce it with tape or something, but it's mostly okay. I think it'll do. Okay, so the first book I read was The Mary Shelley Club by Goldie Moldavsky. It's about a girl that moves to a new school and she's a bit of an outsider still. She's a bit of like not the other girls because she likes horror movies as a way to deal with some trauma she had from her past. But she comes across this secret society that plays horror pranks on people at the school. And she really thinks that she's found her place and her people. However, there seems to be someone that's now targeting this secret society. And it looks like they not only want to scare them, but that they actually want to harm them. So this kid kind of like had to figure out what's going on. So I've already talked a lot about this book in this vlog, so there's not much left to say except it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It's very YA, but as I said, I didn't have a problem with that. It was just spooky fun. I looked through the prompt and I really don't think it fits anything, so I'm just gonna roll the dice as normal. And I got a 6, which is really good. I was planning on coloring the squares, but currently I'm dog sitting at my boyfriend's house and I forgot to bring my colors, so I'm just gonna write it down, which I was gonna do as well anyways. There we go. Then I read The House, I think that was the name, by Raylene Drake. The House is a children's book. It is about a group of kids that go to a haunted house on a dare. So this is like the neighborhood's famous haunted house. And they decide to add their own little twist to this dare and do kind of like a paranormal investigation to disprove that the house is haunted so that no more kids will be dared to go in there. But they end up finding that there's more secrets within this house than they expected. I know that this is a children's book, but it was way too simplistic for me. I don't mind that the story was simple, that was fine, but the characters had no depth at all. They were just like picture perfect kids, like super well behaved, no character flaws, so there wasn't much of a conflict. And I do think that kids are able to appreciate a bit more complex literature, a bit more complex themes and characters, so they just felt super flat. It was super short, so it only took me about maximum 2 hours of my time, but it's not something I would recommend, unfortunately. And that matches a prompt by Lauren, which is Greening Ghosts. Read a book or watch a movie that features ghosts, a haunting, or a haunted house, so that very much fits the bill. So to whatever I roll, I'm going to add 1. So I got another 6. I'm flying through these. So for 12, The House. Then I watched 3 movies, and because movies are quite fast to watch, I decided that I will only count rolls that are 1, 2, or 3. I'll have a movie roundup later on, so my commentary about the movies I watched is gonna be super short. The Blair Witch Project was a rewatch. I'm a huge fan of found footage movies, and I haven't watched these in ages, so I was really excited to see it again. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the appeal it first had has faded because I already know so much about the lore behind its marketing and everything. So scare-wise, it just felt a little bit flat. Like, I can appreciate conceptually why it was originally as scary as it was, but it just didn't have the same effect on me anymore. Okay, so the Blair Witch Project matches The Worst Witch. Read a book or watch a movie featuring witches, wizards, magic. So again, whatever I roll, but between 1 and 3, I will add 1, I guess. Okay, so I rolled a 1, but I will do 2. So 14. Then I watched Beetlejuice, which matches the prompt. Troll 2, read or watch a movie that will make you smile or laugh. Beetlejuice is one that I hadn't watched the full thing. I watched some bits and pieces when I was a kid, just whenever I found it on TV, but I never watched it start to finish. It's actually much more funny than I remembered. I absolutely love the whole cast of characters. I think they all bring a lot to the story, and it has a great atmosphere, a really nice blend between creepy and funny. I had a great time. So 4 is too high for a movie, 6 is too high for a movie, 2, but I will add 1, so that's 3. Beetlejuice. And finally, I watched a movie called Ghosts, which also matches a prompt because it is a book or movie that is not American. This is a complete UK production. I realized I wrote the name of this movie wrong on my board game. The name is Ghost Stories. This is a British film and it's actually based on a screenplay. And actually, I think this would work much better on stage than it did as a movie. The premise was something that immediately drew my attention. It's about a skeptic whose job is to debunk paranormal phenomena and expose psychics as frauds, but then he meets one of his idols who's also a skeptic who also disproves cases, and he gets handed over a file of cases that this other guy was not able to disprove, and he actually claims that this will make the other guy believe in the paranormal. So then this guy gets investigating these 3 cases. This started really strong, and actually it had a lot of like really frightening imagery, but the ending and the resolution really fell flat to me. It was actually really disappointing. So I've rolled a 2 plus 1, that will be 3. 1, 2, 3. And that's my board so far. I'm hoping if I keep going this fast, I can even go around the board twice. That would be cool. And I actually haven't done any activities that are either on the prompt list or from my own bucket list. But basically the rules will be the same. I decided that if it's a small activity like eating Halloween candy, then I will only roll 1 to 3. But if it's something more involved that takes a whole day or something like that, then I will roll 1 to 6. Remember that I will have book reviews and movie reviews separately. So yeah, stay tuned for that and enjoy your spooky season. Bye!